get started then. A couple things as we work through this. There may be some questions, as I did with the previous media briefing. If I say I cannot answer that question at this time, it's either A, that we do not have all the information, or B, that is part of the investigative process that's going over to the Commonwealth Attorney, and it would be premature to release certain pieces of information. There may be other pieces of information that I cannot release at this time based on law, okay? I want to be as open and transparent as we can based on the ballistics information that we have at this time. If you remember when we first briefed about the gunfight between Angelo Perry and the Virginia Beach Police Department, I said I would update you on additional developments in this case as they came forward. As we previously disclosed, 2 firearms were recovered from inside the vehicle in which Perry rode, a Kel-Tec 9mm semi-automatic pistol and a Tec DC-9 semi-automatic handgun. The weapons were seized as evidence and submitted to the Virginia Department of Forensic Sciences for ballistic analysis. We recently received the results of ballistics analysis performed on the weapons in Angelo Perry's possession at the time he was shot and killed by the Virginia Beach police officers. This was after he opened fire on those officers. Forensic analysis of the ballistics directly linked the weapons recovered from Angelo Perry on that night to a series of violent crimes in Virginia Beach. Let me just give a little bit of background, although I don't want to get into the specific information of the first briefing. Perry was under surveillance. Virginia Beach police were attempting to take him into custody on the night of September 5 when he opened fire on the officers, striking, but fortunately not injuring one of the officers. Virginia Beach police returned fire. 4 officers discharged their weapons for a total of 30 rounds. Perry and Miss India Kager were both pronounced at the scene. Their infant son, who was found in a carrier in the back of the vehicle, was unharmed. Perry was a person of interest in a violent homicide that took place in our city. We know he was on parole from Georgia after shooting a man in Virginia Beach. We have information that his parole was transferred to Georgia. He married a woman there, and we also know that he left the state of Georgia without notifying his parole officers. The ongoing investigation into Perry's activities prior to the events of September 5 and the recently completed ballistics report has allowed Virginia Beach Police Department detectives to establish a timeline of violent crimes that were committed by the weapons in the possession of Angelo Perry. On June 13, 2015, a male subject was robbed at gunpoint while sitting in his vehicle in a parking lot of Malibu Palms Apartments. Among the items stolen from the victim was the Kel-Tec 9mm semi-automatic pistol, later recovered from Mr. Perry on the night he opened fire on the police officers. We have cleared this case on Mr. Perry. 44 days later, on July 27th, a male victim was shot in the front left shoulder on Arthur Avenue in the Pecan Gardens subdivision while he was walking into a nearby basketball court. The ballistics of the handgun used in this attack matched the Kel-Tec semi-automatic pistol recovered from Angelo Perry. This is the same Kel-Tec 9mm automatic pistol that he stole, or he stole from the day of the robbery. 15 days later, on August 11th, Mr. Guy Cuffey was found dead of an apparent gunshot wound to the head outside of his vehicle on Wentworth Drive in Manchester Village Apartments. That's in the Green Run subdivision of our city. As he often did, Mr. Cuffey drove from his home in Portsmouth to pick up his daughter and take her to work so she would not have to walk. He was always concerned about her safety walking late at night. Ballistics were matched to the Kel-Tec 9mm handgun recovered from Angelo Perry. We are continually working on these cases. We do know that this weapon was the one that was used to shoot and kill Mr. Cuffey. We do know this is the weapon that was in the possession of Angelo Perry. We feel confident that we have enough information to close this case in the future. 6 days later, on August 17, 2015, Virginia Beach Police responded to a report of a home invasion robbery on Baker Court in the Hillcrest Apartments section of our city. A male and a female were home at that time. 2 individuals burst into their home by kicking in the front door, pistol whipped the male, and shot him in the hand. The female was shot point blank in the face and severely wounded. Ballistics recovered at the scene matched both the Kel-Tec 9mm pistol and the Tec DC-9 recovered from Angelo Perry. We're keeping this case open as we know that there's a second individual involved. 5 days after this home invasion, robbery, and double shooting, Mr. Devontae Snowden was shot numerous times in the head and chest and killed in a parking lot of Atlantis Drive in the Atlantis Apartments section of our city. Ballistics from that homicide matched both the Kel-Tec 9mm pistol and the Tec DC 9mm semi-automatic weapon recovered from Angelo Perry. Detectives found 15 shell casings at the scene. This will also be an open investigation as there's a second individual involved in this case. 14 days later, on September 5th, when the Virginia Beach police officers attempted to extricate Mr. Perry from the vehicle, they were acting on information from the community, corroborated the fact that Mr. Perry was armed, that he was in our city, and we had definitive evidence he was going to do more violence in our city. Mr. Perry then opened fire on the officers with the same Kel-Tec 9mm handgun. If we look at this in a perspective, within a series of 26 days, these weapons were used to shoot 5 individuals, killing 2 of them. And 14 days later, the same weapon was used by Mr. Angelo Perry to shoot at our police officers. So over a period of 40 days, we have 6 individuals who were shot, 2 of whom are homicide cases. All these cases are directly linked to the guns found in Mr. Angelo Perry's possession. One of the important things that I want to bring up is that we're continually investigating all of these cases. We do feel we have enough information once we screen them to close a number of them. But if our citizens out in the city have any additional information, we are asking them to contact us via the crime line so we could obtain additional information to close out these cases. I want you to know that both the Snowden and Cuffey families were notified that their cases will be closed. We also did notify Ms. Best, the mother of India Kager. We notified the father of India Kager that we would be coming before you to give additional information.
What about Mr. Perry? Do you know of any people to notify?
I'm sorry, Mr. Perry's his wife in Georgia was also notified that we would be coming before you today. I'll take some questions, but let's try and keep these strictly to the ballistics information. A lot of the other information we went over during the first press briefing. So I'll start with the pilot.
How many shots did Mr. Kager fire the night of September 5th? Did y'all determine that?
Mr. Kager did not fire. Mr. Perry, 4 shots. Yes.
Just to be clear, I know you said that you've linked the guns to all these other cases. Do you believe he was actually the one firing in all these different cases, or is that still under investigation?
We are continuing our investigation. Right now, what's leading to the fact that Mr. Perry had these weapons in his possession. Remember, he obtained the first one during the armed robbery. And from there, we have a series of cases. We're linking him to all of these cases. We just want a little bit of additional information from the public so we can definitively clear them. Also remember, in 2 of the cases, there's a second individual involved. If we can get information on the identity of that second individual, that would help us greatly.
How many of these cases are still open, you said?
Actually, I'm going to go with the fact that we're continually investigating all of the cases. Right now, we have the guns linked. We have Mr. Perry at certain scenes, but I want to say that we're continually investigating all of the cases so we have definitive information on them in case there were other individuals involved. None of them are closed at this time. Jason.
Are you comfortable in calling Perry a hitman yet?
I'm not going to use those terms.
What about the shots to the victims in the September 5th? Have y'all determined that? How many times were they shot each?
That's still being determined by the Office of the Medical Examiner. When that information is completed, it will go to the Commonwealth Attorney. We are very close to sending the entire case file to the Commonwealth Attorney. I would say within the next 7 to 10 days. And as you know, in our system, there's different investigations that go on simultaneously. Commonwealth Attorney is the independent investigator. He had his investigators on the scene during the entire time. He will then make his decisions at that particular moment in time. We also will begin our internal review. Remember, we're a learning organization. We want to make sure that all of our tactics, all of our procedures that we follow comport with 21st century policing and what we're doing in our city.
So the internal review has not started at this point?
It's been started, but please remember, when officers are brought in on the criminal investigation, we cannot then do a simultaneous internal, because on an internal investigation, they're compelled to give certain information. On criminal investigations, they have the same rights as every other citizen. Although our officers have been very open in what they attempted to do, I do want to state, as I did previously, if we put this whole case into proper perspectives, those officers did everything they could at that night to try and extricate Mr. Perry from Ms. Kager and not have the outcome that we had. It's a very tragic outcome that Ms. Kager also lost her life.
The officer status now?
Officers are still on administrative assignment. We do not do administrative leave. They're on assignment. They're given bona fide work to do every day. We're also working with their command to ensure that we also have the safety and well-being of those officers, to make sure that once we're completed, that if possible, we turn them back to the operational assignment as quickly as possible. Remember, officers involved in a deadly shooting case is something that nobody in this room wants to go through. So it takes a toll on an individual. And we're making sure that our officers' safety and well-being is accounted for.
Are you able to expand a little bit more on the relationship between Kager and Perry, and when they were involved, and has Kager been completely cleared of anything with any of these other incidents?
I can tell you this. The infant child in the back seat was their child in common. So I'll let you determine how long that they've known each other based on that. We are still openly investigating a number of different areas. Right now, what we have is Ms. Kager as the driver of the vehicle.
Is she completely innocent?
At this point, we're still investigating a number of leads on this particular case. I can tell you that Ms. Kager was not, at that moment in time, an individual that we were looking for in any open case. She was at that scene. She was placed in a position by Mr. Perry once he precipitated a gunfight with the officers. I'll take maybe one more question, okay?
And at this point, can you go into any more detail about why it was at that moment at the 7-Eleven that officers chose, where there were other people around and her, to approach Mr. Perry?
As I said in my first press briefing, information was being received continuously. We had 3 commanding officers together to make the final decision that at that time, at that moment, was the best place to attempt to extricate Mr. Perry from that vehicle. If I can give you maybe an example, when you're in that mode, when you're in that situation, the information that was coming in, there are no timeouts. There are no coach throwing the flag to review the video on the case. It's at that moment, at that time, a decision has to be made. The commanding officers made that decision at that time. Okay. Thank you.